COVID, 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 COVID. By the way, on November 4th, you won't hear about it anymore. It's true.
He's labelled his handling of the pandemic as tremendous, A+, and said nothing more could have been done, which is obviously ridiculous.
What do you get when you cross a reality TV star with a global pandemic? A dumpster fire, apparently. Trump's handling of COVID-19 is like watching a toddler try to perform brain surgery. But don't worry, we've got all the juicy details. From disbanded pandemic teams to airport chaos, we're breaking down Trump's tremendous A+ response. Spoiler, it's more like a D with extra credit for creative excuses. Remember when Trump said COVID would magically disappear? Well, spoiler alert, it didn't. In fact, it stuck around longer than his spray tan in a rainstorm.
That's all I hear. Turn on television. Right? COVID, COVID. COVID, 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 COVID.
Believe me, I would love nothing more than to not talk about COVID and instead return to subjects we'd normally cover on this show, like
COVID, 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 COVID. By the way, on November 4th, you won't hear about it anymore. It's true.
Back in the early days of 2020, our commander-in-chief was busy dismissing the virus threat like it was just another failed Trump steak. We have it totally under control, he boasted, probably while stuffing his face with McDonald's. But behind the scenes, old Donnie Diapers knew the real deal. In a juicy twist that would make even reality TV producers blush, Trump spilled the beans to Bob Woodward. This is deadly stuff, he admitted in private conversations. Meanwhile, he was telling the public it was just like the flu.
For many, Trump's handling of the coronavirus is going to be a significant factor in how they vote. And to listen to him, that's really not a problem. Who doesn't know that Trump fucked up this pandemic? The truth is, a lot of voters are more than willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's labelled his handling of the pandemic as tremendous, A+, and said nothing more could have been done, which is obviously ridiculous.
Talk about playing both sides and losing. Experts agree that downplaying a pandemic is about as smart as trying to cure it with bleach injections. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert and perpetual thorn in Trump's side, warned that mixed messaging could lead to very serious consequences. But our grumpy Trumpy didn't listen. He kept insisting the virus was going away faster than his hairline. Spoiler alert number 2, it wasn't. In fact, every time Trump claimed victory over COVID, cases spiked higher than his golf scores. Remember when he said we'd be back to normal by Easter?
Remember that time that he suggested we should leave American citizens on a cruise ship ravaged with coronavirus because they'd increased the number of positive cases in the country? And even once the pandemic had begun, Trump took an appallingly long time to take it seriously. He likes the numbers being where they are. That was insane, right? And we covered that on this show. In fact,
yeah, that aged about as well as month-old McDonald's fries. Instead of chocolate bunnies and egg hunts, we got overflowing hospitals and a toilet paper shortage. Talk about a crappy Easter surprise. As cases surged, Trump's excuses got more creative than his comb-over.
This country is very lucky, and I'm very lucky that I put the ban on China.
To listen to Trump tell it, he bans travel from China and job done. So if you've lost a loved one to this virus, I've got some great news. You didn't! Is that once we found out about it, we acted unforgivably slowly.
We're doing a great job, he'd crow, while the death toll climbed higher than his tower. It was like watching a toddler insist he didn't eat the cookies while covered in chocolate crumbs. But wait, folks, it gets worse. Because when it comes to Trump's COVID response, we're just getting started. Buckle up, buttercups. We're about to dive into a PPE shortage so bad, doctors were wearing trash bags. And not the fancy kind either. Remember when dressing up as a doctor for Halloween meant a white coat and a stethoscope?
And I shouldn't have to remind you just how badly this administration coordinated crucial supplies like PPE. And yet the White House denies mishandling anything. The RNC even featured this video touting the heroism of frontline workers. Some medical professionals resorted to making their own using ski goggles, snorkel masks, and garbage bags.
In Trump's America, it apparently meant garbage bags and ski goggles. But here's the kicker. This wasn't some twisted costume party. It was real life in our hospitals. Healthcare workers were facing a PPE shortage so bad, they had to get creative. And by creative, I mean desperately rummaging through their junk drawers creative. Doctors and nurses were slapping on ski goggles and snorkel masks like they were prepping for the world's worst beach day. It was less Grey's Anatomy and more MacGyver Hospital Edition. But why were our medical heroes playing dress up? Well, it turns out the Trump administration's approach to managing PPE supplies was about as organized as a tornado in a trailer park. Instead of coordinating a national national response, they told states to fend for themselves. It was like throwing a bunch of hungry seagulls a single French fry and yelling, "Good luck."
PPE has been sporadic, but it's been manageable, and we do what we have to do.
We had nothing. We had empty cupboards. We had empty shelves. We had nothing because it wasn't put there by the last administration. Because I've heard the opposite. I've heard that they are loaded up with gowns now. And
the result? A chaotic bidding war that had states fighting each other for masks and gloves like it was Black Friday at Walmart. Some states got so paranoid they started hiding their PPE stashes from the feds. It was like a nationwide game of hide and seek, but with life-saving equipment instead of giggling children. Experts were pulling their hair out, saying a more organized approach could have avoided this mess. But apparently, organization isn't Trump's strong suit, unless we're talking about beauty pageants or golf tournaments.
We had to scramble for essential equipment at the same time as almost everyone else on Earth. His complaint that he had empty cupboards and shelves is slightly undercut by the fact he'd been president for 3 years when that conversation took place. His administration's approach to managing the supply chain was a total shambles. At first, Trump encouraged states to get it themselves.
Now, brace yourselves for the pièce de resistance of this PPE fiasco. The man Trump put in charge of this critical task force. None other than his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Because nothing says, we're taking this seriously like putting the guy who couldn't get a security clearance in charge of national security.
It tried to coordinate things directly, with Jared pulling in a group of mostly young, untrained volunteers to help vet leads on PPE. Jared fucking Kushner was made the White House lead for something called the Supply Chain Task.
Kushner's crack team was mostly young, untrained volunteers who were about as qualified to manage a pandemic response as I am to perform open heart surgery. One volunteer described the situation as being left without proper support. Gee, you think? Meanwhile, PPE companies were waving red flags like matadors, warning about shortages and offering plans to ramp up production. But the administration's response? Radio silence. It's like they put the entire pandemic on do not disturb mode. So there you have it, folks. Trump's PPE response. A comedy of errors that would be hilarious if it wasn't so terrifying. But don't worry, I'm sure there are plenty more fiascos where that came from. Stay tuned. So there you have it, folks. Trump's COVID response wasn't just bad. It was a dumpster fire of epic proportions. Our orange-tinted leader managed to turn a public health crisis into a reality show, complete with plot twists and backstage drama. But unlike his TV shows, we can't just change the channel on this disaster. When you head to the voting booth, remember the time Trump suggested injecting disinfectant might cure COVID, or when he claimed the virus would disappear like a miracle. Spoiler alert, miracles don't usually involve overflowing hospitals and a Great Depression level economic crisis. Next time, let's try electing someone who doesn't think science is a liberal conspiracy. Someone who won't put Jared, I read a book once, Kushner in charge of a pandemic response. Maybe, just maybe, we could have a president who listens to experts instead of his gut. Which, let's face it, is probably just full of hamburgers anyway.